Good day, friends and fans. Welcome to Writing Quarter 44, Faction Building, Part 3, Organizational Structures. What is an organization? Organizational structures? Uh, Hold on. Sorry, hold on. I'm having, right. My, well, an organization is a group of people with common goals, common themes, common motives under a single banner. And of course, to be an organization, you need to be organized. Even pirates and so called anarchists still have a leadership and leadership roles. And you have, what would you call it? A chain of command. That's it. That's what it's called, a chain of command. So there's no organization that would be, say, pure anarchist that you could point to and say, hey, this has got no leadership, this has got no what would you call it? No leadership, no chain of command, no what would you call it? Class or um yeah, classes or ranks. That's it, ranks, like a military. You could have a mercenary. I think the closest you come is a mercenary squad where their their goals, their motives, etc. They're assigned. They carry out the goal through cooperation, but still, each to be organized, each member has to have a role and exist within a structure that binds them together to be an organization. So, when defining your organization, what are its ranks? What are those roles? Who are the leaders? How are the leaders chosen? How what do they do to represent the group? Uh, what are, how does the group decide the concepts? So when a group comes together, it has goals and motives. But as it continues, how does it decide these? Uh, how does the group stay together? Right. When a group comes together, it has goals and motives. But what happens when it achieves it? It has to have, when it comes together, it defines itself, and there are goals and there are motives, and so you build that structure to achieve it. So you have a unifying factor. How does this how does this leadership and how do these ranks interact? Like, let's take a union for example. Its goals to secure certain rights and privileges for its members and to protect that which it's already secured. So how does it? So you have the leadership, how it's chosen. Usually, it's voted amongst the representatives, but sometimes votes are extended to the rank and file to represent to the representatives, then to the leadership board. So, but the goals and ongoing concepts that unify the group and keep the unified group are the same goals and motives that brought it together, and the structure remains the same ever since. Like the union members don't affect the leadership or structure of the organization. Their goal and their role in the organization is to be a muppet to to parrot the union, and so it's a top-down structure. Whereas, let's take a sporting team. Again, it's a top-down structure, but at least you have what the owners, the coach, the training assistants, the team captain, and the team. But within the team, there's a little bit more, when it comes, the coach trains them. Um, the team, they have clear goals. They have. They're not like the goalie hasn't got the same, has more say or more position. So you have the captain, the goal scorer, or the goalkeeper, or the quarterback, and then you have the different positions. So depending on the team type. So in the military, you have clear ranks, clear structure. It's pyramidical. There's only so many. Each squad only has a non-commissioned officer and a commissioned officer. Out of out of each cluster of squads, there's only one captain. So you have a lieutenant, a captain. Four captains get a major. Four majors get a colonel. Four colonels get a general. Well, that's not always the same, but there's only a small percentage of leadership on the overall structure. There's lots and lot, and even in peacetime, there's way more officers than there are in war. You'll actually get entire squads will go from 8 to 36, right? But no extra, and maybe only gain and maybe gain a few sergeants under one lieutenant. So it changes. No, but the overall factional concepts, the unifying idea of the group remains the same. That's what you're defining, the organizational structure, right? What what made them together, and when you define it, now you got to keep them together. So organization needs a purpose, but it also needs assets, revenue, because the organizational structure is made up of people. People need offices, they need meeting halls, they need communications. In small groups, these would be people's houses. People would be paying expenses out of pocket. People would bring food, like a church group. In a sporting team, you'll have a field, a clubhouse, perhaps maybe a training field, depending on the size. The bigger the team, the more financially viable the team. They'll have stadiums. They'll have revenue from winning games, from ticket sales, from merchandise, etc. So the bigger the team in fame and reputation, the more revenue it has, the team members go from being amateurs paying out of pocket to professionals getting paid by owners. But of course, in a small amateur team, when it becomes professional, the team sort of is the club owners for a while, but eventually, as players, so you know, players leave, some stay, some become club management. So the structure, membership may change, but the organizational structure remains intact, remains solid. Now, the formation of ranks give hierarchy. But at the bottom, you'll have a collective. That is what the structure sits on. Unions, it's the union membership, basically workers. It rides the back of the workers. Military, it rides the back of the civilian population from which it which it is allegedly protecting. Nobility, they sit on the society they rule over. Now, is this organization structure based on honor, merit, social status, wealth, savagery, or ideology? Well, let's look at like let's look at the samurai. Its structure was based on honor, and you had that with some knightly orders in the West as well. Um, sporting teams, merit. You'll mostly find merit in sporting teams. Social status, political organizations, nobility, um, with organizations based around merchants, it would be based on wealth. The wealthiest have more power. Same with investment groups or any financial organization, it would be based on wealth. Of course, savagery. Well, military organizations, the leaders are usually the most savage or the smartest savage. Uh, Somewhat merit, but in reality, it's savagery, right? You may think Milne's a pussy, but he's the most savage pussy in the pussy pit. But he's also the biggest kiss ass, but he's still a savage and the biggest savage. Now, with um, artists, and it often's the body of work rather than the merit. So, like Meryl Streep will sit at the top, and Johnny Depp and a few others, simply because they have a large body of work, even though most of their early work is shit, and to their non-fans, most of their work is shit. It's not merit; it's a body of work, and you get this with sculptors and painters. Like you look at Stephen King, his fame comes actually from being prolific rather than being meritorious. And you'll find this often with artists. And again, with workers, it's they try to organize around merit, but often you'll find savagery and social status and wealth plays a part there in some guilds based around artistry, etc. So it's not cut and dry, but you don't need a complex structure. You can have, right, a simple pyramid union. You have the union management, which is usually a board of 5 to 6, sometimes up to a dozen. They will be all former union reps, and they'll each have districts with a dozen or so union reps, and they'll have hundreds, perhaps thousands of members per district. Some, that's for a large union, but some will have huge districts with a handful of representatives and a handful of workers. It all depends on the industry. Again, like the military in peacetime, will have 8 men in a squad. One with each will be a non-com and a lieutenant, and 4 of those squads will make up a division under a captain, and 4 divisions under a major, and 4 majors under a colonel, and 4 colonels under a general. But those squads at the bottom in the wartime will be up to 36, and they'll have 12-man squads with only led by a sergeant. The number of lieutenants won't increase. The lieutenant will become an adjutant to the captain, and the squads will report to the adjutant, who except the captain will give the meet. So the weekly reports will go to the adjutant, but the meetings and commands will come from the captain. So the adjutant is somewhat in the field and somewhat in the office, whereas the captain is also somewhat in the field and somewhat in the office. And so it grows, and See, thing you got to remember is the larger the organization is going to be three-dimensional, right? So you have the front, general, colonel, major, captain, lieutenant, non-commissioned officers, the non-commissioned, right? That's three-dimensional. In wartime, it will have still the few generals, but it'll spread out the number of colonels, slightly increase and spread out, but it'll have a huge base, a big, much bigger base of all these units, and amongst them would be amongst them would be spreading between soldiers, base security, engineers. So it's not just the increase in the amount of soldiers; it's the logistics support goes through the roof. Some armies, their logistical support is 1 in 10 because they're light on assets, whereas asset-heavy armies have massive, massive logistics support, and they rely on fake economies backed by huge trading empires. But those empires could crumble because you pull enough allies, or close enough ports, or destroy enough trade routes, or simple shift in allegiances by customers who think they can get a better deal off someone else, and those empires crumble without being defeated in war. Some empires only have to lose. I think the British Empire only lost 10% of its revenue with the United States, right? Leaving. But that 10% was enough with the war against England. The Napoleonic War saw the end to you had the beginning of the end of the British Empire, who tried to replace America with India, and that didn't work out. And basically, that all led to World War One, because everybody was out to get rid of the British Empire, including America. And to some extent, had Britain not fallen for the trap and allowed France to suffer the consequences of declaring war on Germany and coming to peace with Germany, and getting a peace with France, for getting a peace for France, sorry, there would have been so much better. But there are so many people out there who want war, and that's what you've got to take into account with your organizational structure. The enemy within, and what role they play, the secret societies. So remember, one of the concepts when you're looking at a secret society, what are its public face? It's three-dimensional. It has a public face and a private face. And often members are acting blind. You take unions and secret societies and religious organizations. They just think the greater good, and that's all they do. They don't even think the consequences of their actions. And if you plan things out, you have a lot of story in and itself that will play out. And most of this is for yourself, but you'll be developing the story, and or stories to play out these organizations, their structures, and it'll give you a clear idea and a clear understanding of where your story will end up. Because as you write it, you'll be thinking, you have to think about the consequences, and if there's two large factions, they're automatic rivals. Doesn't matter how friendly the leadership is, it's still going to be rivalry. Competition breeds conflict. Conflict breeds war. It's depends. How's the conflict handled? That's up to you. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and all that fun stuff. If you'd like to support the channel, you can buy coffee mugs and other fine items in my Etsy store. Link in the description below. 10% off for viewers. The discount code is in the link below. You can also become Patreon. You can get early access to my writing or RPG material, or both. And of course, my books are in the link tree in the description below. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video.